has the right to participate in any sphere of activity as long as this does not involve inflicting harm and suffering on others or depriving others of their just rights. Okay, so now I see that Buddhism itself passes through, in whatever school, whether it be Theravada Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, maybe to some extent Vajrayana Buddhism, passes through these three cultural stages. Perhaps it's most prominent in the Theravada school of Sri Lanka because that school has been exposed to all three historical stages. And so we have traditional Theravadan Buddhism developing against the background of a traditional culture. So this might be, taking Sri Lanka, the Buddhism that we have from the time of its introduction to Sri Lanka, about 250 BC, up to the arrival of the European powers and their attempts to spread Christianity. Then we have in reaction to the attempts, to the Christian missionary effort, we have the Theravada Buddhists, at least those in the cities, Colombo, who had been exposed to Western culture, often those with an English education, developing a modernist understanding of Buddhism, using it as a kind of foil against the Christian missionary efforts. So the Christians say you have to believe in God. The Theravadan Buddhists then look at the scientists in the West who are saying we don't need God. The Christians say you have an eternal soul. The Buddhists then look at the modern psychologists, William James, Thoughts Without a Thinker, no soul. And Hatha becomes no soul. And then of course there comes the reliance upon the printing press, comparisons, the Buddha as the first psychologist who beat Sigmund Freud to the mark in analyzing the id, ego, and superego, the Buddha as the first physicist who beat Isaac Newton to the mark in teaching the law of cause and effect, the Buddha as the first, maybe in the 1950s, the Buddha as the first socialist who beat Karl Marx to the mark, Karl Marx to the mark, or Karl Marx to the marks, by propounding the sharing of wealth in the Sangha as a model for the wider society, and so on. So it attempts to modernize Buddhism. Okay, but now as Buddhism comes to the West, to the US and so on, it's encountering people who have been, in fact, it appeals most to people whose mind has been already moving in the direction of what I call postmodern modes of understanding. And so as we adopt Buddhism from that perspective, it begins, the way we apply it, the way we understand it, the way we seek to actualize it, both within ourselves, within the world, and within the world, tend to conform to this postmodern framework. And I think what is most distinctive, what I would call most distinctive of the postmodern framework, is a drive towards a total integration, a holistic integration of dimensions of experience that in a traditional culture, against the background of traditional understanding, will be separated and opposed to one another. And so, a few weeks ago, this was towards the end, the third week in March, I was scheduled to appear on an interview program as part of a series comprising 40 interviews with 40 people, called Awakening to the Sacred. And the organizer of this conference or symposium gave us several questions to consider in advance of the interview. And one of the questions he gave was, what is your understanding of the sacred? Now the word sacred, it's a word which a little bit difficult to interpret in terms of a traditional Buddhist framework, perhaps especially a Theravadan framework. But I reflected on how I should understand and explain this word. And so I tried to devise what I would call 3 domains that I would consider sacred. And these domains are indicated a little enigmatically here, but now I want to fill them out so you understand what this diagram is driving at. While I write things in, if somebody can get, is there some water?
Okay.
I'd like a cup of water.
Water?
Yeah. Just warm water.